Called David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're very fortunate that this bill actually made it to the House, because it was going to be pulled because the National Party didn't realise actually that the Labor Party was supporting it. So it was going to be pulled, and finally they came to their senses, actually had a look at what we were talking about, and as a result of that, it's going forward today. Sir, there are some good things about this bill. Jackie Dean just mentioned a couple of them: shared services, asset management. Nobody can argue with that. But when it comes to issues such as the amalgamation, so I just want to start on the amalgamation issue, because this is something that the people on the east coast of the North Island around Napier are very passionate about. And I want to thank the National Party for being so forthright on the issue of amalgamation in Napier, because it has made the job of Stuart Nash just that much easier to get across the line. To get her across the line, Sir Wayne Welford hasn't got a show as a result of this government going through minister after minister, minister after minister saying, we support the amalgamation in the Hawke's Bay. It's wonderful stuff. It's a really sad day for Chris Tremaine, I'm sure, who's been working so hard to have that seat lost to the Labor Party, as it inevitably is going to have. Sir, I just want to mention, and I want to touch on the point that Phil Heatley mentioned a little bit earlier, and that is the development contribution. The development contribution that is going to save so much money for developers. He just couldn't quantify it. He couldn't quantify it. So when we were asked, is it hundreds of dollars? Is it thousands of dollars? Is it tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands? We calculate it to be around about $1,000. This is the huge contribution that the development contribution is going to save those developers when it comes to building houses, and that's what it's going to change in terms of housing affordability. Also, let's think about this. What difference will that make? What difference will that make when in New Zealand our house prices are going up 22% across New Zealand under this government, and 40%, sir, just in Auckland itself? A development contribution levy saving of $1,000 is going to make very little difference. In fact, it's not even going to cover about a third of the cost of the lawyers' fees. Sir, this is negligible, and yet this government is touting it as some sort of saving grace, and it just shows in the area of housing just how desperate it is to ensure that New Zealanders they try and dupe New Zealanders to think that houses are going to be that much more affordable. Sir, what does that mean for ordinary...
Order. I'm sorry. Look, can government members please show... Order. Please show some courtesy. Order. Can we just show some courtesy, please, to the Speaker? It's very difficult to hear. I'm calling David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, look, it's what we come to expect, really. You've got a piece of legislation coming through the House at the moment that's going to save our house buyers, people who want to be homeowners, $1,000, and all you can do here over here is a whole lot of chatter about what colour shoes they're wearing or whatever it is that they're talking about. Sir, there are couples, sir, in New Zealand, and I'll tell you about one couple in particular, who have been renting a house for a long time, and as they've been renting it, they've been making some real changes to that house, putting in a vegetable garden, putting in a barbecue, sir, and what happens? They get told to move. So they move further out from the inner city where they want to live. Their kids have to leave school, and instead they're renting another house. And they've come to the conclusion, sir, that there is no way that they are going to be able to afford to buy a house. Here is a couple with 2 incomes, 2 kids, working like crazy, saving as hard as they can, but they are not going to be getting over the line. And why is that? Because the average price in Auckland to buy a house is now $700,000. $700,000, and the government has slapped the LVR on it, which will mean that they have to get a 20% deposit, and you do the maths around that, and that's $140,000 that this couple has got to come up with. And everybody, except those who have got wealthy parents, are going to struggle to find $140,000. It is impossible. Another couple that I know were looking around at a house out in West Auckland, out in Glen Eden. They looked at one house for $410,000. They went into this house. There was literally mould growing in the walls, on the carpet and on the ceilings. They simply couldn't put their children into that house. That was $400,000. That was the cheapest house you could buy. They are still looking, sir. They're still looking for a house that they can afford. But, sir, this is affecting couples, young people right across this country. All they want is what everybody else in New Zealand has been promised, is that you save hard, you work hard, you'll be able to get into your own home. And that dream has gone, sir. That dream has gone. You simply cannot do it anymore. Here's another couple and three boys, three young boys. They've already got a house. They've got a very small house, and they are wanting to get a larger house. A larger house because they've got a bigger family now. They bid on a house. They couldn't afford the $500,000 price tag. It went to a buyer that they kept track of, and went and saw this buyer, and a year later, the $500,000 house, this buyer agreed to have a private sale and sold it to them for $620,000. Just 1 year later. Just 1 year later. So this couple now are paying $120,000 more for the house that they missed out on the first time. And what does that tell you? That house prices, sir, are out of control, and this piece of legislation is being touted and held up to, in some way, increase housing affordability. Are we crazy? There is no way you can increase housing affordability with a bill like this. There is no way you can increase housing affordability with the policies that this national government has come up with. They are afraid to take on the big issues. They talk about their accord, their housing accord with local government, and yet not one house has been built the whole time that housing accord has been put up there, sir. Not one house has been built, and it's in force now for nearly a year, and we still have no progress whatsoever. Also, I want people to think about those young couples that don't have a chance to buy their own home. And then I want to say, sir, that we in the Labour Party are willing to step up, roll up our sleeves and do what young people need in order to address the housing affordability. Not pass through this legislation and say in some way that is going to enhance housing affordability, because it's certainly not. Sir, we will bring in a capital gains tax, and we know, because the bankers have told us, that will take 22% out of the speculative value in houses today. 22% out. That's a capital gains tax, a 15% capital gains tax. And the member over there, the member in Epsom, where as I say, the member's from Epsom. He's not representing Epsom. He squats in Epsom, but he doesn't stand for Epsom in any meaningful way. Sir, you wouldn't get a $700,000 house in Epsom, Mr. Goldsmith. And we will build more affordable houses, a range of houses, but we'll use the ability to build large numbers of houses to get the value that will enable affordable houses to come into existence that will meet some of that demand. We will ban offshore people who are not residents in New Zealand from buying New Zealand houses. Sir, the housing market is not the stock market. It's not about buying and selling pork bellies. These are about houses where people need to live. And we don't want them to be a piece of speculation on the international market. So we will ban offshore speculation. And thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member's time has expired. I call Paul Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.